In the year 2017, a terrible event occurred in Orenburg. A girl who was 12 at the time was abducted. All the police forces of the city on January 17, 2000 of the 17th year were sent to search for her. Anastasia Dyakova was returning home after a walk with a friend. They went to buy a hamster at the bazaar. However, the girl never returned home. Nastia lived in a multi-story house in a densely populated district of Orenburg. The girl said goodbye at the beginning of the house, a few meters away at Nastia's entrance. According to the girl's godmother, she was always very calm, even a little reserved, but she always communicated well with the children. Her mother, who raised Nastia without a father, speaks about the modesty of the girl. Family, she's an only child. In the afternoon, the woman received a message from her daughter, in which she called for help. I was at home. An SMS message comes from her. Mom, help me. Some guy pushed me into the trunk. Nastia left the house at 11 o'clock, and her mother received the message only at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Then I immediately called my daughter back. However, this was a big mistake, as the kidnapper heard the call. I called back. Of course, it was my big mistake. The kidnapper heard the call. She managed to say, a man pushed me into the trunk. Mom, help me quickly. That's all, our whole conversation. Our connection was interrupted, and I just managed to shout into her phone, I'm calling the police. I ran to the neighbor, because I absolutely could not even hold the phone in my hands. My hands were shaking so much. I've had it fall out 3 times. I understand that time passes, and my phone is constantly lying around, I couldn't even hold it. I ran to the neighbor, and she called the police herself. I do not know in what condition I was lying on the floor there, crying. I could only say that Nastia was kidnapped.
Hey, I'm not going to beat around the bush. You have to subscribe to the channel and like it so you don't miss new videos.
15 in the police took a statement about the alleged abduction of Nastia. Literally 15 minutes later, the police were already in the apartment, after which they immediately began searching. We interviewed all the residents and checked the neighborhood. It turned out that the police knew about the abduction of the girl even before the woman's appeal, because earlier another citizen had applied to the station. I saw a man in a car kidnap a girl and throw her in the trunk. He closed the trunk and drove away. The head of the criminalistics department from the IC of Russia in the Orenburg region said, according to the mother, there was no one to think about, the family has no ill-wishers. At 16:00, the volunteers of the Arena of the Savior found out about the abduction. They received the information from the police. If your child is missing, if you feel that something is wrong, report immediately to the police, to the search teams, because after 3 hours, the chances of finding him alive are melting every minute, the rescue squad said. They were looking for a girl almost all over the Orenburg region. They searched for Nastia everywhere. In courtyards, landfills, abandoned buildings. Almost the entire Orenburg region came to look for the girl. Neither before nor after that there was such a case that such a huge number of people joined the search and rescue activities. Nastia's mother could not fully believe what was happening and could not find a place for herself. The thoughts were terrible, the most terrible. Already at 16:35, an interception plan was announced in Orenburg. All that was known about the car was that it was Grant's white Lada. At 17:00, Elena was called to the UK. The motives for the abduction were still unclear, because in case of ransom, the criminal would have contacted relatives, Nastia, the woman believes. Half an hour later, a DVR recording was found at one of the residents of the house, as well as the brand of the car was installed. And at 17:45, a journalist from one of the city's publications arrived at the place of Nastia's abduction. The girl's mother hoped for a good outcome of events until the end. The minutes dragged on. An hour later, information suddenly appeared on the internet that Nastia had been found. Friends started calling the girl's mother. However, these data were a simple provocation, but the author of the false message could not be calculated. At 19:00, the police discovered a new fact on the recording from the city surveillance cameras. It turned out that a little earlier the criminal tried to steal 2 girls, but failed and moved to a neighboring yard, where he kidnapped Nastia. The video was again distributed in social networks. New volunteers appeared. Also on the video noticed the number of the car. Law enforcement agencies suggested that after the abduction, the criminal would most likely have decided to leave the city. By 10 o'clock in the evening, there was no new information about the girl. Nastia's relatives began to get scarier. Alive, not alive, what does he want? Why did he steal it? What is he doing with her now? Where can they be? Such questions were asked by my mother herself. Later, Elena was informed that they would call back when they found the girl. The mother's hands dropped. It was already about 10 o'clock in the evening. At that moment, she was told that she could go home, and when there was news, she would be called and informed. One of the volunteers played an important role in the search. He said that he was going to check the houses on Tikaya Street. Soon the guy drove to the dump. Snow is being brought here from Orenburg. The man began to look around. There is no one. Then the headlights flashed in the field. The road was bad. He walked a little further. The young man decided to go beyond the suburbs. I went down and saw only trucks there. But later he drew attention to a car that was standing between snowdrifts, without headlights. There was a silhouette of a man inside the car, but no one got out. The car itself immediately seemed suspicious. Coming closer, the man saw that this was the same car that the police were looking for and in which, according to the description, Nastia was abducted. The volunteer immediately picked up the phone and started calling law enforcement agencies. But at that time, a man got out of the car and unexpectedly asked a volunteer for help, as the car stalled. The man began to doubt whether the kidnapper was in front of him, since the car number was one digit different from the one stated. But later it became known that it turned out to be the same kidnapper. He was detained by a police squad that arrived on the call. They hand me the phone and say your daughter will talk to you. And so, Nastia says, Mom, I'm alive, healthy, everything is fine with me. I attacked a police officer, kissed him all over. I was shaking him, screaming. You understand that my child is alive. Just an inadequate reaction from joy. I was jumping down the corridor, says Nastia's mother. At the meeting, the mother wanted to hug Nastia, but the girl was hurt by every touch. The kidnapper used physical force against her and raised his hand against her. Nastia's mother later said in an interview, she goes in one boot, the hat is incomprehensible, not hers. There is no one boot, all crumpled up, poor girl. Mom, don't cry. These are her first words. She hugs, and I kiss her. Mom, just don't cry, but don't cry. I wanted to hug her tightly, but I didn't give in. She's in pain. Elena Besliagina, the girl's mother, also said, I was speechless when I saw her, because one part of her face was completely one big hematoma. She could hardly speak. The godmother added that she also had a split lip. The investigator said that an important role was played by an SMS message that the victim sent to his mother, otherwise the search would have begun much later. It would take a while for the mother to find out that the child did not come home at the appointed time. Thanks to the fact that the city reacted to the situation with lightning speed and thousands of people went out to search, thanks to this, the situation ended positively. Nastia experienced serious psychological stress, so she did not give an interview about the abduction. However, Elena shared some details. I guess he wanted to abuse her. I don't have any more assumptions. He just told her to take it off. She refused to take it off. He started using force on her, started taking everything off himself and throwing things away. At the time of the abduction, the girl saw a man. It is suspicious that his trunk was open, and she started to go around him, but he ran up from behind, kicked her on the back, closed his mouth and threw her into the trunk. Nastia did not have time to call for help, but she did not lose her head and wrote a message to her mother from the trunk. Later, the girl shared with her mother that the criminal had talked to her. She said that he moved her to the back seat, seemed, we're going to go to a place, eat, and then I'll let you go. We arrived somewhere, then the car stalled, and he began to give her alcohol. Later he started using force because she refused to drink this alcohol. The kidnapper turned out to be a former loader Yuri Tiunov. He had previously committed similar crimes, including those that ended not just tragically, but also with death. During the interrogation, Tiunov confessed that he had abused and deprived the life of a boy who was 7, who had been unsuccessfully searched for 4 years in the Perm region. The maniac himself pointed to the place where he buried the body. In the end, the criminal case of Yuri Tiunov numbered more than 42 volumes. He himself tried to mitigate the charges of kidnapping, stating that he mistook Anastasia for a young girl and only wanted to rob her. The trial of the maniac began on the 1st of December 2000 of the 17th year. Tiunov's case was considered by the Perm Regional Court. The defendant's lawyer insisted on the limited sanity of his client due to the detection of his disorder. On December 28, 2017, Yuri Tiunov was found guilty of all the crimes of which he was accused, and according to their totality was sentenced to life imprisonment with serving sentences in a special regime colony. In addition, Tiunov was assigned compulsory treatment at the place of serving his sentence. In the first days of March 2000 of the 18th year, Yuri Tiunov tried to appeal the verdict to the Supreme Court of Russia, but on the 20th of March 2018, the Supreme Court upheld the verdict. Yuri Tiunov is serving his sentence in the Mordovian Zone colony.